everyone. Today we'll be talking about the Cold War, which was a war between the United States and the Soviet Union in the 20th century. During the Cold War, there was no actual warfare, and the main conflict was based on the debate between communism and democracy and which one was superior.
Do 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 do.
Bum bum.
Do 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 do.
Bum. The Cold War started almost immediately after World War I, once the U.S. became paranoid of the USSR trying to destroy democratic institutions. Meanwhile, the Soviets perceived U.S. rebuilding in Europe as an attempt to expand their markets. After the Soviets fell back on their promises to Eastern European countries to be free to govern themselves, a theoretical and geographical Iron Curtain divided Europe, separating democratic and communist states.
And now it's time for the open letter. Dear NASA, thanks to your jealousy over Russia and their satellite Sputnik, who took launch on October 4th, 1957, you were able to step up the American game and take us to the moon. However, NASA, why would you cause a massive increase in our debt? Aside a 500% influx of cash, your competitiveness over Russia also resulted in their demise through the massive, relentless efforts to surpass our greatness. Sincerely, Sarah Tellez.
An arms race is the competition between two countries over the quality of their military or naval powers. Let's go to the thought bubble. The arms race first began during World War I between Britain and Russia. They began to utilize nuclear weapons, and the first atomic bomb was made by the USA in 1945 and was first tested in New Mexico. A few years later, the USSR detonated their first atomic bomb in 1949, which ended the US's monopoly of atomic weaponry, which officially set off the start of the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis, one of the first scares involving nuclear weapons, was a standoff between the US and the Soviet Union concerning missile deployment in Cuba, and it was the closest the world has ever come to a full-blown nuclear war. In April of 1948, the Marshall Plan became effective. With this plan, the U.S. hoped to rebuild war-devastated regions, remove trade barriers, modernize industry, and make Europe prosperous again, and prevent the spread of communism. In 1949, the predicted further expansion of communism prompted the U.S. and 11 other Western nations to form NATO, the North Atlantic Trade Organization. In response to this, the Soviet Union and other communist nations in Eastern Europe formed the Warsaw Pact in 1955. Now that Europe was being divided into regions with opposing alliances, Europe was now truly politically divided. In 1961, the German Democratic Republic constructed the Berlin Wall, which split Berlin in two halves, west and east. Eventually, the Berlin Wall came to symbolize the Iron Curtain that separated Western Europe and the Eastern Bloc, all throughout the Cold War. The wall also restricted immigration and began to cause hardship to the families that were divided by it. With the end of the Cold War came the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. Another important event during the Cold War was the fall of the Soviet Union towards the end of the 20th century. The Soviet Union was a communist state where present-day Russia is located. Under the leadership of Mikhail Gorbachev, the Union began to slowly fall apart. Revolutions in the conquered states began in 1989 as a result of reforms created by Gorbachev. These reforms included glasnost or openness and perestroika or restructuring. These reforms also helped lead to the end of the Cold War. Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, the Baltic states, were the first to secede from the USSR. Ukraine, the Russian Federation, Belarus, and 8 other states left soon after, creating the Commonwealth of Independent States. Georgia was the only state left in the USSR until it seceded 2 years later and joined the Commonwealth. The USSR officially ended when Gorbachev resigned in December of 1991.
By the 1990s, just after the fall of the USSR, the Cold War was coming to a close. There was no real winner of this war, despite the billions of dollars that was spent on preparing the militaries for expected confrontation that never happened. Despite the end, America found itself unable to diminish its so-called Cold War culture, featuring the missile crisis, space race, and backyard bomb shelters. As previously said, after the fall of the Soviet Union during the reconstruction of Russia, Mikhail Gorbachev mainly tried to re-establish Russia's reputation globally. His successors, Boris Yeltsin and Vladimir Putin, have been continuously trying to save their reputation since the end.
Basically, the Cold War ended with everyone owing everyone else a bunch of money, and no actual warfare directly between the US and Russia, as the wars fought in the Cold War itself were merely all proxy wars. The most important things that came out of the Cold War were the nuclear arms race and the military buildup between the US and the USSR. Even though the Soviet Union did come to an end, it definitely left its mark on world history.
Hey everyone, today we will be talking about the Cold War, which was between the United States and the
Soviet
and the Soviet Union in the 20th century. During the Cold War, there was no actual warfare. The main conflict was based on the debate between communism and democracy, in which was superior. But he
The Cold War. You said I know. You're making me feel insecure.
Did I say death again? Yeah. Dead. Okay. Detonate.
From the Warsaw Pact, which the span. There's a cheetah on the floor. Sounds like Bert Marshmallow.
Yes. Wait.
No noises.
Okay, Sonica, stop chewing.
Don't worry.
Your head's getting cut off a little.
I need this one. Is that a Snicker?
Okay, ready?
Yellow.
No, hurry up, it's recording.
Okay.